It was really important to me thematically that The Fruit Tree was the first song to come out. I had a couple other demos that I was excited about, but The Fruit Tree is the beginning. The process of developing the storyline took a while as well. I mean, it was definitely evolving over the entire process of making it, and I knew that I wanted it to center around this staircase. I'm really interested in framing things differently, untraditional frames, I suppose, of like containers to hold video, and the stairs was just like a vision that I needed to execute. That was like what I started making first. When I started making the video, I didn't have the plot. I had this idea of scenes in a staircase, and I started building the staircase before I had anything else. I created everything myself for this video, and in some ways that gave me a lot of pride and empowerment, and in some ways it was very isolating. I'm really glad that I did it, and I'm also glad that I'm opening myself up more to collaboration now. But it was very encompassing. It was a 3-month project of working every day on sets, costumes, filming, and editing myself. And of course, the consequence of that is that now I just believe that I can make anything. And I'll figure it out along the way, because that's really entirely how this went. It was just a process of discovery. One of the most rewarding things was working with all different mediums, things like paper mache, wire fabrication, garment construction, costume design, embroidery, sewing, paper, and also sewing clothes. I did a little bit of clay, prop making, set design. That one painting is 7 by 9 feet. I've never painted anything that big before. Stop motion, and then of course shooting, lighting, editing, masking. It was really good. It was a lot, but it was really good. Something that I love about blending mediums in a project like this is the world building and the just all-encompassing experience for the viewer at the final project. It feels tactile. It feels aligned with the subject matter. Again, technical improvements, definitely. But overall, there's a story, and the materials are also telling that story. The Fates are really interesting to me. I mean, Greek mythology was very popular when I was growing up, and I loved it so much, and now I'm sort of broadening my horizons in terms of mythological traditions. But it is interesting how the feminizing of fate is sort of seen across cultures, and fate as a woman, and fate as a spinner, and as someone who works a lot with textiles and embroidery and thread. I loved the image of fate being scissors, a measurer, and a spinner. Also, with the dresses, I really wanted to have the patches on the stomach, because I think that there is something to be said about females as fate and the generative power of women, which is obviously a motif carried through the video in terms of the stomach scenes and the dresses and the patch placement over the womb, but also lyrically, the bridge deals a lot with social messaging towards women, grappling with a socially determined fate as a mother, a socially determined fate as comfortable within an oppressive patriarchal society versus the sort of empowered creator that has sort of been stolen from us as part of our identity. And I just want to be clear, by generative power of women, I'm not only talking about reproductive physicality, but emotional labor, which is something that is expected of all women and femme-identifying people, which is a social expectation to perform a reproductive function. I think, without going too deep into it, a lot of this music video song concept has to do with my time as an abortion clinic volunteer in North Carolina the summer after Roe v. Wade got overturned, and the expectations that protesters had of how women should be in the world. I do feel a sort of spirituality in the natural world. I think everyone does. I think it reminds us of our mortality, of our humanity, despite all the gadgets and various devices we have to make ourselves more comfortable. Something about being outside reminds you how insignificant it all is. And I was watching a Netflix documentary called Abstract. Neri Oxman discussed the different ways of connecting with nature. I feel like I spend a lot of my time indoors creating art inspired by nature instead of being out in it. And I really just love, she said, to paraphrase, that you can connect with nature fully by working to align your practice to the observation, care, and nurturing of nature. So it can exist in both an experiential context of going on a hike or an artistic expression of being in a studio. I don't know, I just thought that was really beautiful and relevant to this video because I did spend a lot of time inside while making it, but I was always thinking of outdoors. Another thing I liked most about the fruit tree video, as it turned out, is I feel like there's so much more to elaborate on and so much more to explore, and I feel like I definitely cast a very wide net in terms of having 18 different scenes that I made and making scenes within the scene, and I do feel like there's a lot of space for me to branch off and take this project and bits and pieces of it and put it into other things that I'm working on. And that's also sort of why I wanted this to be the catalyst for my new project. And of course, water is a big motif in all of my work. My artist name is Lily of the Sea, so, duh. But, I mean, I do think it's worth explaining. Why are the stairs in the sea? Why did I put on an outfit, take the train to Rockaway Beach, set up my camera on my tripod, and run into the ocean with all my clothes for the opening scene? And, well, the reason has to do with this book by Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth. I was reading it this summer, and I mean, obviously, I'm very interested in the ocean and the sea as this really powerful natural force and just beautiful, symbolic land that humans are both reliant upon, but also completely opposes our entire nature as land-dwelling creatures. But there's this quote in The Power of Myth: "Metaphorically, water is the unconscious, and the creature in the water is the life or energy of the unconscious, which has overwhelmed the conscious personality and must be disempowered, overcome, and controlled. In the first stage of this kind of adventure, the hero leaves the realm of the familiar, over which he has some measure of control, where a monster of the abyss comes to meet him. There are then two possibilities. In a story of the Jonah type, the hero is swallowed and then taken into the abyss to be later resurrected, a variant of the death and resurrection theme. The conscious personality here has come in touch with the charge of unconscious energy which it is able to handle, and must now suffer all of the trails and revelations of a terrifying night sea journey, while learning how to come to terms with this power of the dark and emerge, at last, to a new way of life." I agree with Campbell's claims that there are a lot of contemporary problems that can be solved with myths and storytelling, and, in my belief, recentering nature and recentering other species into our vision of the world and our obligations and our ethical responsibilities is incredibly crucial, particularly when trying to process climate grief or honestly just being a person with empathy in the 21st century. By far the most anxiety-inducing part of this whole process was doing the outdoor shots. The quote-unquote nature scenes are all filmed in Central Park and then at Rockaway Beach, and I was very comfortable in the isolated walls of my apartment, but putting myself out there outside, just in physical space, was a little unnerving. But then this dog, I was watching back some footage, and I noticed somebody, their dog just ran in this shot, and that was really amazing. Thank you. I learned a lot of things about myself, too. I learned that I like spending time with myself. Ever since I moved away from home, I feel like I've been less independent than I was in high school. And it was nice to sort of recover that. Looking back at the video now, it's about 4 months old at this point. I think that from a thematic standpoint, it's really developed. From a technical execution standpoint, there's a lot that I wish I'd done differently. However, I was very much at the beginning of empowering myself to make stuff. And from a storytelling perspective, it's really interesting. It's very much the beginning. If it was a tarot card, it would be the Fool. I think it taps into a more archaic storytelling tradition of archetypes and innate human universal emotions, feelings. I got deeply entrenched in trying to make it symbolic and trying to reference all these motifs, and I just reread the Odyssey, which informed the sort of epic storytelling narrative. I was reading Joseph Campbell, that book that I quoted earlier, And the power of myth and storytelling in that way as a way to frame human experience is really the focus of Fruit Tree.